Here's block 11, which is the flowers block, and we're actually going to make 2 blocks in total. One of them is having 3 flowers and the other one is of 1 flower. So we're making 4 flower blocks, joining 3 of them together and leaving one of them as it is. These 3 joined together will be 18.5 by 12.5. This one 6.5 by 12.5. So the best place to start is by cutting your backgrounds. These are cut at 6.5 by 12.5. We have 1 with fabric 2, 1 with fabric 29, and 2 with fabric 35. So all 6.5 by 12.5, which happens to be exactly the same size as my ruler, so that was pretty handy. You'll also need the stabiliser to go on the back, and that's the same size, so 4 pieces of stabiliser. And then we're going to move on to the applique fabrics. So I've given you the size of piece that you'd need if you like to cut your applique fabrics away from your main piece of fabric. Some people just put the applique onto the fabric and have done with it, but it's quite nice to have it separate. So here's my ones for my flowers. I've got fabrics 20, 31, 36 and 40. So where I've got almost a piece on my piece that was around 5 inches square, I've just cut that off. So these are not all exact, but my flowers are going to fit onto them perfectly. Then you've got the pieces for the flower centres. I've got fabrics 33, 41, 24 and 39. Just ignore the instructions that you can see in the video as I changed a colour. Floral one, the doily, we've got a cross stitch one and the orange doily fabric for our centres. Here are the fabrics for the leaves. You're going to be fitting 3 leaves onto each fabric, so a piece about 3 inches by 4 inches should do the trick. And I've got fabrics 8, 37, 13 and 21 for those. For the stems, the easiest thing to do is to cut everything a little bit oversized and then cut your stems out from it using the ruler. So with this fabric I need 3 stems from it. I'm going to cut an 1.5 inch strip. You need that to be about 7.5 inches long or longer. And then I've cut my steamer seam at 7.25 by 1.25. So it's very slightly narrower than my fabric, and that means when I iron it on, I'm going to have a little bit of overlap on the outside and I won't be getting glue everywhere. So that's for those 3. And for my other strip, I've cut a piece 7.5 by 1 inch, and my steamer seam is 7.25 by 1/2 inch. So I've got plenty of room there to iron the steamer seam onto the back and then trim everything down from the steamer seam side. So I've traced 4 flowers onto my steamer seam. Just remember to trace it onto the side that the glue sticks to when you do a test peel. So there's 4 flowers, they're going to go onto my flower fabrics. Here are my flower centres. If you prefer, rather than tracing the circle, you can use your circle cutter or whatever technique you used before for cutting circles out. I have 4 sets of leaves, so 3 leaves for each flower. And then I've cut out oversized strips for the stems, because it's going to be easier to put these on and then cut the stems out rather than cutting them right down to 1/4 inch and then trying to fiddle around with the steamer seam. So next I'm going to put these on the back of the fabric. So I'm all set up with my Teflon mat and my iron. I'm peeling the paper off the back of my steamer seam, going to put it onto the back of the fabric. Oops. So this is 7.25 long, this steamer seam, so it all needs to fit on my fabric. and I'll just be trimming down the width of it in a moment. So I've got the mat underneath and also on top to protect the iron and the ironing surface. Give it a really good press. That's stuck down nice and well. Next, the longer stem piece. To cut out the stems, I'm going to use my ruler. Each stem wants to be 7 1/4 by 1/4. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim up near the edge of my steamer seam on the left. And then I'm going to put my 1/4 inch line on the edge. You can be a little bit generous with this if you want to. Cut it like that, and then take the excess fabric off the ends. Then this piece I need 3, so I'm going to trim the ends first, and you have to do it once then. Okay, so I'm going to trim up the edge. And then put a 1/4 inch line on the edge of the steamer seam, and I can just cut strips off. 1 strip, I need 3 in total. I don't think I'm going to need this piece, but I may as well keep it just in case. So to save time getting the paper off, the easiest thing to do is turn it over to the side that you didn't trace onto, score with a pin, and then pull. And you just want to get the paper, don't take the glue off. Then that goes on the back of your piece. If you want to use your circle cutter to cut out these circles, mark the centre of the circle. That's going to be 1 inch across and 1 inch down. So I've put my 1 inch mark on my pencil line here, and I've put a mark on the pencil line up there. So that there is the centre of my circle. And then I can get my circle cutter. Okay, back to maths lessons at school. The diameter of my circle is 2 inches, and so the radius is 1 inch. This is going to be set at the radius. Just undo this and set this side of the cutter where this first blob is here, and long mark. That's going to be the 1 inch point. Put the tip of your compass in the centre of the circle, and then move this way. And I find I have to swap hands halfway between, and sometimes hold the fabric down. But there we go. That's popped out beautifully. One little thread to clip there. There's my circle. If you want to, you can cut the centre of this steamer seam out just to reduce the weight of fusible that you have in the quilt. It'll be around the size of this flower centre, but it doesn't really matter. As long as there's enough to stick the edges of the flower down, then it'll be fine. And take the paper off the back. It's going to go on the back of my square. If you do cut the centre out, just be very careful to make sure you're not going to get a bump in the middle. So this needs to be really flat down onto my fabric. And then fold the mat up and give that a good press. It's really worth pressing it well, so because you've got quite a lot of edges on these flowers and we don't want the edges coming off. And do find it goes a little bit more see-through when it's nicely pressed. So that's that one done. Oops, I've got a little bit of glue on my mat, and the nice thing about the Teflon is I can just roll that off and get it out of the way before I put my next piece down. With the flowers, I just cut into the tips. I'm actually cutting them from both sides, right into the tip, and then I'll come and cut the other one to come meet it. But you can do all 3 leaves in one go. These were ones I fit around my flowers on the piece, so I'm putting one upright and one pointing down so that they all fit. And that one will fit that way up, like that. These ones I just did all in one go, so it's a lot easier to just cut out all 3 leaves at the same time on the steamer seam, and then we'll be cutting them individually once we have them on the fabric. Okay, so now I'm off to get all the rest of my pieces cut out, and I'll join you when we're putting the blocks together and laying the pieces on top of our backgrounds.